Okay, I work for Atmata. I work as an application engineer. I take care of training and support. Okay, in this webinar, what I have done is I have chosen some of the handful of picks of what's new, so that our users will get familiar with what's new. And I urge you all to also um, use these options, what you are seeing in this webinar. Okay, so some of the users always report there's a performance issue. So sometimes opening large drawings usually takes time, and editing large drawings usually consumes a lot of time. So when your drawings have a lot of annotations, a lot of dimensions, and a lot of views, a lot of sheets, they usually take time. Now with 2020, we have the new feature which is called the detailing mode. So in this feature, you can open drawings very quick. Okay. In this case, the model is not loaded. So your system is able to take in more capacity of memory. It can handle more of memory of the drawing. And in this mode, you can also add and edit annotation symbols like magnetic lines, your symbols, your GD&T, your dimensions, notes. So all these features are available in this particular mode. Okay, so you can add sketch entities, you can edit sketch entities, and also you can save this as a PDF. Okay, let's see this in action. So here I have I'm opening my drawing, which is a real intensive resource drawing. So when I open my drawing, I have selected the detailing mode. So what SolidWorks does is it opens this drawing in the detailing mode, and you can see all my drawing sheets are available. So there is no loss of any data in the detailing mode. So all my drawing sheets are available. You can see all the views, you can see all the dimensions. Now you can also edit these balloons, put them to magnetic lines. You can edit nodes, add nodes. So this capability is there with the detailing mode. So I can edit my nodes quite fast. And remember, this mode opens the drawing very fast, rapidly. Okay. So in this sheet, I need to adjust my view. So I find this is more clumsy. I would like to shift this view to another sheet. So I cut my view, I open a new sheet, and it's just as easy as just pasting your view onto the sheet. So I just paste my view here, and you can rearrange your dimensions. So here I rearrange my dimensions. You can also make use of the ballooning option. So you can make use of the magnetic lines, add balloons to your drawings. Adding of dimensions, yes, are quite easy. So on the fly, I would like to just select entities of my scope. So I pick entities which I need to dimension. So it's just easy as doing the familiar workflow of adding dimensions on the fly. So once my dimensions are added, I have the option to also add information to the dimension. So in this case, I'm adding 4 into number of holes. So you have the format painter option where you can match dimension styles very fast. So what we see here is all capabilities in the detailing mode is available. So I put some revision clouds, and then I can also save my drawing. So I can save this as a DWG, as a PDF file also. So let me save this as a 3D PDF, a PDF file. So I have the option where I can select the PDF, PDF option, and you can see all the sheets are ready to be exported to a PDF file. So here I have all my sheets. I have all my views available in the PDF file. So I would urge you to make use of this option. And with this option, handling massive drawings is quite easy and quite rapid. You can open it fast. With all your configurations, you make use of your configurations, and with lots of lots of information in your sheets, it's easy to manage it with the detailing mode. Okay, this is also related to performance, where some of the users say that when I open a large assembly, the performance of my system reduces. Okay, this can be because of various reasons. So we have an option where we use the large design review edit mode. So the large design review edit mode is something where you can review large designs in your assembly quite fast. So you save time on your navigation. So the time taken to navigate your assemblies, the time taken to modify your assemblies, you save time in the large design review edit mode. So this was actually introduced in 2012. So we have some options which were introduced in 2012, like you can navigate the feature manager design tree, selective open components, you can measure distances. So while editing the assembly, some features were being added into 2012. Now with 2019, they have added more features into it. So we have options where we can insert components, we can delete components, move, rotate components. So additional features, additional capabilities have been added into the large design review mode. In 2020, they have inserted some more features, which is more of a quick access. So we have the copy paste. So you can do the Control-C, Control-V. You can drag and drop components into your assembly. Also, you can use the Shift tab, the familiar way of using Shift tab in your assemblies to hide and show components. And they have added the zoom to selection option. I just want to show you this in action. So here we have I'm going to open a very large assembly here. So I'm opening this drawing in a large design review mode. So when I open this drawing in a large design review mode, as you can see here, only the light weight, or you could say the components, just as graphics reference, have been loaded into the memory. So it's very easy for me to navigate, to rotate. I can also use the measure tool in the large design review mode to measure components. I can create sections. I can view sections, use the section plane option. And also I can select components and hide and show them. So these options are available with the large design review mode. If I want to edit a particular assembly, so you just right click the component and say edit assembly. As you can see here, all the features related to that particular component is being shown. So it's been loaded into memory. So I have my constraints, my sketches. So I can show my sketches. Also, if required, I can select my assemblies and I can also delete them. So I can delete assemblies and also insert assemblies into this large design review assembly. So additional assemblies can also be inserted. And once I insert this component, let me constrain this. So I can use my constraint. So the whole flexibility, the feature to the option to use my constraints are available with the large design review mode. So let me insert another component, another sub-assembly here. And here you can see I've used the option for the magnetic constraint. I can also use configurations in the large design edit mode. So any components, any sub-assemblies with configurations can also be used in this mode. So hide and show hidden components is also available. So I can unhide them and I can save my assembly. So what we see here in the large design review mode, you can edit large drawings, large assemblies quite fast. So you can speed up assembly design and reduce visual clutter. So most of your systems which have performance issues, like in large assemblies, you can use the large design review mode. Okay, we have something as another feature called the envelopes. So envelopes are nothing but they are kind of external references. So they can be components or they can be a sub-assembly. In this case, I have an example for an envelope. So you see here, I have a PCB and also I have a sheet metal component. So in this case, my area of focus is on the sheet metal component. So here what I'm going to do is I'm going to transfer the holes from the PCB, the mounting holes from the PCB onto the sheet metal part. So in this case, what I do is I'm going to use my sheet metal, my PCB as a reference component. So this is going to be an envelope. Now we have a link, a guide. I have a linear guide with a link arm. Okay, so I have a slider mechanism. It's a kind of a slider mechanism, which the slider is being created as an envelope. So envelopes usually do not list in the bill of material. They are used as reference components. Now with 2020, you have more control over the envelope components. So here in the system option settings, you have an option where you can set your envelope to any component, and you can also use the top level assembly. Okay, so let us see this in action. So this is my Micromax abrasive water jet assembly. So here I have the option to create an envelope. So what I'm doing here is I'm selecting the envelope publisher, and I'm selecting the components to use as an envelope, and I'm using them on a destination assembly. So as you can see, I pick my destination assembly and I say add a group. So when I make it a group, SolidWorks creates a group of my envelope and to be worked out with the destination assembly. So it's easy for me to validate my design in this case. So as I keep moving my slider, you can see the arm also moves. So here I can constrain my arm and the slider to validate my designs quickly. So this gives me more flexibility on validating my design, as you can see. Now see, it has a link with the envelope, with the reference component. So, but this component is not going to be linked in the bill of material. So it gives you more flexibility on validating your designs. Okay, we have another option which is called as flexible components. So making components flexible. So here I have some examples of flexible components. I have some bellows. These are rubber bellows. As you know, rubber bellows, they expand. Sometimes when I create a mechanism where I have to cover it so that I want to validate how much of bellow expansion I have or how much of contraction I have. If I have to decide on the kind of bellow I need so that they do not stretch more than its limit, I can validate them in these kind of designs. Also, you see they have a plastic hinge here. So this plastic hinge is nothing but it has a part of a kind of expansion and contraction when you actually open them, use the mechanism. So similar way we have springs and so on. So here what we have is we have an option where we can make the part flexible. So while you make the part flexible, this is not going to change the mass of the part. Okay, it's going to retain the mass, and also you have it supports multiple instances in the bill of material. Okay, you also have the control over custom properties. Okay, let us see this in action. So here I have the mechanism of the water jet nozzle. So this mechanism here, what we see here is we have to validate how the nozzle is going to be focused on. What is the angle of cut I need in this assembly? So as you can see here, when I move the assembly, similar assemblies with that move. So these are some of the assemblies which have been made flexible here. So this as a whole, when I move my assembly, when I move the nozzle, all these assemblies, 4 assemblies move with it. So they are made flexible. Now I want to create a bellow so that the abrasive material do not enter the link mechanism. So here I have my bellows. I have put my bellows. What I do here is I'm just going to select my bellows and make it the part flexible. And I'm going to map this to the fixed the fixed part, the initial fixed part. So I'm just going to select it, make flexible, and map it, select the fixed part. So as I move my assembly, now this bellow has become flexible. So what you see here is, I will select my bellow, I will make my part flexible. So make part flexible, and I'll fix my constant the fixture. So wherever it is going to be fixed constant, I'm not going to move from that part. I'm going to fix that part. And as I move my assembly, you can see the bellows update. Similar way with the hinges and with the springs, it works the similar way. So with this, and there's not going to be any change since the bellows expand and contract. There's not going to be any change in terms of mass or in terms of your bill of material. So it's going to retain the same properties it has. So here we have, you can validate your designs quick with this flexible option, making parts flexible. And also you can have a visual validation. So I can visually validate if my bellow will suit this particular mechanism. Okay, assembly mates. So another thing what we have in 2020 is we have the assembly mates. So here what SolidWorks has done is they have added the quick mate toolbar for the distance and the angular mates. Also, we have sub options with the slot mate. So when you use the slot mate, you have a sub option where you have to move into some of the menu to achieve this particular option, which is available on the fly. And also for the width mate. And there's an option, very good option, which is called the flip alignment pop-up button. So when you use the width mate, sometimes the component has to be flipped. So this option is available on the fly. So here I have my assembly here. So using the constraints are now quite easy with SolidWorks 2020. So you have a lot of options which you could quickly do your constraints. So in this case, I'm using the profile mate. So I select the washer and the slot, and the sub options are listed here on the fly. So I no need to move into editing options and then setting my component. So here also I'm using the profile mate. Now you see I should flip the flip the screw. So I have the flip option here. So I just select the flip option, and it's easy for me to flip the screw. So quite handy option. So in this case, I'm going to constrain this pin to the bush, and I have the symmetric option, symmetric mate. And as you see, I have the flip option where it's very handy for me to flip components. So this is one of the productivity tool which will help you to work on the fly. So as you're doing in the graphics area, you have the options to flip components with the mate. Now, coming to the angular mate. So now I need this cover to be at an angle. So here I have the limit mate. So for the distance and for the angle. So as you can see, SolidWorks on the fly, they have given the options where I can enter the minimum value and the maximum value and the total distance of travel. So you can see here, I have it the minimum of 0 and the maximum of 90. So these are some of the handy options what SolidWorks has done so that the user can be more productive while you're using your mates or your constraints in the assembly. Assembly patterns is one of the option which has been introduced enhancement in 2020. So we have the pattern driven component pattern. So you can derive the orientation. For example, when you say pattern driven components pattern, for example, I create through the hole wizard, I create a hole, and then I pattern this hole. So when I pattern this hole, it is in a group of a pattern. So when I put a fastener on it, I put a component on it. To pattern this fastener onto this whole pattern, it's just as easy as just selecting the component and selecting the pattern of the whole feature. So this is what we call it as pattern-driven component pattern. So when I have, as you can see here, I have the orientation of my bolts, my fasteners on the opposite side. So you can see with this pattern-driven components pattern, SolidWorks has the intelligence to identify the orientation and position your bolts uh, based on the hole. Okay, so we have this option into the pattern driven components pattern. Then we have a variable linear and circular patterns. So usually we create linear patterns as well as we create circular patterns. So now you have the option where you can select individual components or individual patterns, and you can give the variable, specify the variable distance in terms of linear and the circular angular measurement. We have another option which has been introduced, which is called the mirror by origin option. So this will help, which is not available with the existing options. So this is a new option which has been introduced into the mirror. And then we have the mirror orientation controls. So previously in SolidWorks, we used to have these options, the mirror orientation controls, within the what you say within the menus. So you have to go and you have to select a particular option. So this is on the fly. Okay, let's see this in action. So you can see this is an assembly with most of symmetric components. So you can see a lot of patterning here, a lot of symmetric components in this assembly. Okay, so here I have the option. So here I've created a hole wizard. So you have a hole wizard which has been patterned. So what I do here is I select my pattern, the existing pattern, and you can see the orientation of these fasteners. I've automatically positioned their heads. You can see the hexagonal heads and the orientation has automatically been selected. So intelligence of positioning your components is available with the pattern driven component option. And here I'm going to do my circular pattern. So by selecting my axis, I create a circular pattern. Now, once I do my circular pattern, I can select individual instances and change their values. So here I have a variable circular pattern. So I can pick the individual instance and modify them and specify the angular measurement for the circular pattern. The same is available with the linear pattern. Now mirroring components, so I can just pick my component, mirror them. Now as you can see here, options are available here on the fly. So it's quite easy for me to select the options at one go. And also I have an additional option which is called the align to origin, or it is called the component origin. So I select the component origin, and this is a new option which has been introduced in SolidWorks. So other options for the mirror, which is the left hand side, right hand side, top, bottom, left, right, is available at a single go. So at a click, the user can validate what kind of mirror option he requires based on his design. So here you have minimized or there's a few patterns which you are going to use in this. It is more powerful, and you have more control over your patterning features. Okay, another option here is the 3D Connect. Now let me just brief you about what is 3D Connect. So 3D Connect is nothing but it's a kind of inbuilt plugin with SolidWorks where you can drag and drop native format files or neutral CAD files into SolidWorks. So in this option, what we have is your step files, your DWG files. Now, if you see, new file formats have been introduced. So DWG files, DXF files, IFC files also are available now with this 3D Interconnect. So there is no need for the user to open the file and translate them, export them, and save them as a separate file to use them in SolidWorks. So it's just a drag and drop. So here with the 3D Interconnect, what we have here is we can just drag and drop components into my drawing. So here I have a file which is a step file. So I just drag and drop them into the drawing, into my assembly. And it's just as easy as just constraining them and reusing them into the assembly. So remember, 3D Interconnect is something which you can, which has the link with the original file. So it has the link with the original file, and whenever you update the original file, it also updates. So it has a seamless workflow in between other softwares and other formats. So this 3D Interconnect is also having a link with, you can use it for Inventor files, you can use it for Pro E files, CATIA files. So SolidWorks Premium, the top level, has a collaboration with CATIA. So you can use 3D Interconnect with also CATIA files also. So if you're working with if you're collaborating with other softwares, you can use this option to seamlessly work with the components and assemblies. Okay, now this is something to do with your STL files. So usually I will identify this as most of 3D printing companies will have to do some modifications to their files, STL files. So here with STL files, now you have additional options where you can edit them. So with this, what you have is you have additional tools. So I have additional tools which is called the mutual trim. So with the mutual trim, you can trim surfaces. Another new option has been introduced into 2020, which is the repair damage. So where I can delete and I can fill. So SolidWorks automatically deletes the patches and it fills the surface. So this option is very handy, very useful, where I can select the edge and I can apply a fillet here. So I can specify my fillet just by selecting the edges. I can also convert my fillets to chamfer also. So when I say edit my fillet, I can make them a chamfer too. So editing is quite easy with this. Now in this case, I would like to increase my radius. So I can use the surface offset. So here I'm going to use a surface offset for around 5 mm. I extend my surface. So this is the normal way of how you work with surfaces. It's a familiar workflow. And using the created surface, I can trim and remove the additional surface inside. So by this, what I do is I increase my radius. So when I run a check on my model to see if any openings are there, if there is anything open and which is not knit, so SolidWorks identifies that this portion is having an open. So I can just delete it, and what SolidWorks does is it deletes and it patches the hole. Now here I have some bolt holes which I want to delete. So it's just as easy as selecting them and deleting the face. And what we see here is SolidWorks deletes these holes and patches the surface. It makes a normal surface. So I save a lot of time on doing editing with the STL files. So this is a kind of a tool. These STL files, I think companies with a lot of 3D printing capabilities use this kind of STL files, which has a lot of options where you can edit on STL files. This is what kind of, we have the mesh decimation and body compare. Now I would term this as like, I can use this for an inspection. Sometimes you might have a cloud data where you make it a mesh and you would like to compare it on the original part is one option. Another option is if you have performance issue, if you're using meshes which are very dense in as a reference component. It can be a bottom component, it can be a reference component. So if you're using this kind of meshes to make the drawings lighter, or I want to use some of the features from the existing mesh, this option will help you to reduce or decimate the body, and also I can compare it with the original file. So here, what we see here is I have a gear. This is a gear wheel. So this gear wheel, I'm going to decimate it. So here in this case, I have a facet count of around 50,000. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to reduce this by 50%. So my facets are going to reduce. I have to have a facet of around 25,000. So SolidWorks runs the decimation. And then what it does, it gives me a final model of a 50% reduction count. Now I have an option where I can use the tangential surface or the tangential facets to create an axis. So this is one advantage of creating reference geometry in your mesh model. So I can just select my tangential references, and you see SolidWorks creates the axis for me. Now here I have the original part. So this is my original part, and this is the mesh body. So I have an option where I can do a body compare. So this is going to help me to compare the bodies, and it's going to give me the difference in terms of measurements. So as you can see here on the right side, based on the color coding, I have the difference with the original and the mesh body. So this is a very good handy option where you can try it for inspection. Suppose if you're doing say inspection on certain components, so you have the cloud option, you have the mesh, and you can use this to check the difference. So here I have, remember it is having a very increased performance when you use it in an assembly. Try to reduce your facets, and also you have a visual verification of the original part on the mesh body. So with drawings, we have additional options which I introduced, new options. So this option is something to do if whatever dimensions I'm going to place should be in uppercase. So you have to set your do your settings for this, and then setting of drawing scales. Previously, we had to go click in, and we have to go into a lot of other options where we have to set the drawing scale. Whereas in this in 2020, it is just 2 clicks. And then a new feature has been introduced into SolidWorks, which is called the chain dimension. which is very similar to the base dimension. So you can create a chain dimension as well as a baseline dimension. Alternate position views for parts is another option. So let's see this in action. So here I have my drawing sheet. I have two views in the sheet. So in the previous methods, what we used to do is we used to go and it used to list the drawing scales here. So I can select my whatever scale I want from the list. Now, adding additional scales, you have SolidWorks has given the option to create in a TXT file. So I can add my custom scale in the TXT file, and I can change it there. Now, changing drawing scales is quite easy, where I can just click on the sheet, and I can use the user-defined option and enter my scale here. So it's quite easy. So you avoid a lot of clicks while moving through setting your scale. So creating a detailed view, as usual, it was a scale of 2:1. So it's 2 times the original scale. So setting of even detailed view scales are quite easy. So where you pick the view and just change your scale on the fly. Now here I'm going to add a chain dimensioning. So I select entities of my interest. So I pick entities, and as you can see here, SolidWorks adds the chain dimensioning. I can also add an overall dimension to this chain dimensioning. So once I right click, I add an overall dimension. I can also delete dimensions, and you see the overall dimension has adjusted itself. So it's quite easy. So I can convert this chain dimensioning also into baseline dimensioning and vice versa. So these are some of the handy options which you have to create dimensions. Now in this case, I have a pump housing, and I'm going to represent the casting part and the machine part in the pump housing. So now it is available to define or to show alternate position views for the casting and the machining part. So once I superimpose both the parts, it's easy for me to define the difference between the machined area and the casting area. So quite a very good handy option for you, those who are into casting and machine parts. So these are new features which have already been introduced into SolidWorks 2020. So here you have a continuous workflow, and there's a lot of improvements on the drawing environment. Okay, now we have the structure system. So with the structure system, so creating like massive structures or more of similarity can be done very quick with the structure system. So it's very rapid, it's very easy. So more flexibility, more control has been given to the users on the structure system. So the structure system is a type of advanced weldment. It comes from the advanced weldment module. So here you can select lines. As you can see, you can select lines, you can select planes, you can select points to create your weldment assemblies. So here we have two things. You have to remember two things here. You have the primary member. Whichever member is the first which you place is called the primary member. Connecting these members is called the secondary member. So here we have the primary member. You have more control options where you can specify points on these members. So merging these members is another challenge. Creating corner joints, edge trims is another challenge. So you have more control over this. So you can also split a member on creation. You can pattern the structure system. So the mirror and the pattern supports the structure system. So as you can see here, this is my structure system. Just imagine doing it in weldments and creating a lot of 3D sketches is quite tedious in doing it in weldments. With structure system, it makes it more easy. So what we have here is, as you can see here, I have a drawing, a simple drawing. I have 4 planes, I have 2 sketches, and I have an axis. So in this case, I switch on my structure system. I start with the primary member. As you can see, I select the point option. And here what I have is I can create members by selecting points. So I just pick points, and you see SolidWorks creates the members for me. So in this case, if I want to merge both the members to a single point, I can just pick the point, a single point, and you see SolidWorks merges both the members to a single point. So it has more flexibility with the creation of members. I can also select the plane up to plane, and all the members will reach up to the plane. And also I can select a sketch and align it to the sketch. Now, once I created my primary members, I will add some secondary members where I can select my primary members, select my plane references at what level they should be created. I can select the type of member, and also I can align my secondary members. So positioning of secondary members also are made quite easy. So let me add a few more members to this. So I'll add a cross brace. Now in this case, I'm connecting the cross brace at an angle, and it should actually be trimmed at those particular bodies. So here I can define my type of profile. I can select the orientation of my profile, the rotational direction of my profile. So once I exit my structure system, it will ask me for the edge trim. So what kind of edges you require? So I have the option here to select the type of edge trim I require and to select the order of trim. So which member should be trimmed first and the second and the third and so on. So it is more flexible and quite easy than the weldments. And you can see here, it has a very good, it has trimmed my members quite good. So this is what I needed for the design. So circular patterning of the system, as you can see, there's an option here where they have introduced the structure system option. So I can just pick my structure system, and by selecting my center axis, SolidWorks patterns the whole system. Now, once I have patterned my system, now I would like to connect these. Now these are the primary members. Now I'd like to create a secondary member between these two. So I just select my primary members, and here it's the same thing. I pick my planes. So at every level of this plane, I need to have a connection. So here I have an option where I could orient my secondary member. So I pick my secondary member, and SolidWorks, now once I exit it, it asks me how do you want the connection between the members. So I define the type of edge trim, the connections, and the order of trim, which is quite easy and handy with the structure system. And now this becomes a system where I can pattern this whole structure system around this assembly. So using the structure system for creating massive assemblies is quite easy. As you can see, it is more of the advanced part of weldments. So you have good control over your weldments. So in future, what you can do is you can start implementing this, and you can check how flexible, how much of control you have on your structure system. It's quite easy, quite handy. Okay. Now coming to the user interface, we have something called as, we have a good open dialog box, an updated dialog box. As you can see here, we have a slider to define the mode of file you open, in which mode you're going to open it. And also we have some animations on the command. So as you place your mouse on your cursor on the command, you can see an animation of how it is going to be, what's the procedure. And also we have a search in the material library. So it's easy to search materials, the type of material you want from the material library. Okay, let's see this in action. So here, it has a neat open dialog box, what you can see here. And also we have the modes as a slider bar. So I can move to any slider bar, whichever mode I want, resolve lightweight, large design review, and I can open my file. So the tabs are very neatly categorized. The toolbars, the tabs are very neatly categorized, and it's easy for selection. So here I have, when I place my cursor on the command, you can see there's a small animation which tells me how this should, what's the procedure of doing this particular command. I can also create folders. I can select multiple features and drag them into the folder. So this is one very handy option, which is very helpful. With the material dialog box, I can search for materials. So if I just type the first 2, 3 letters of my material, it's quite easy and handy to search them. So these are some of the enhancements which will help you in productivity. So here we see we have improved user interaction, and these are some of the commands which you use in daily use. So it makes you more handy in your daily use. Okay, with this, I complete my brief, handful of what's new in 2020. If you have any questions, you can type your questions in the chat box. Okay. Okay, there are some questions which have come. You can type your questions in the chat box. Okay, so I have some question. Can we compare between envelope in SolidWorks with skeleton in Creo? Is it similar? I have to check this because I have to check this feature with Creo. Let me check on this and I will get back to you. Can we use flexible components? Can we use configurations of flexible components? Okay, I am not sure with this. I will have to check this. I think it will be possible. Yes, you can use it. I think it will be possible because it supports configurations. Can we use detailing mode in drawings created in SolidWorks 2019 version? Okay, can we use detailing mode in drawings created in SolidWorks 2019 version? I think this, you will have to open the drawing and save it with 2020. So update it to the latest version and you will have to, then you can use it in detailing mode. So any other questions? Do you have any other questions? You can also, let me wait for. Okay, so if you have any questions, your queries, I would suggest you to, you can send your feedback, your queries. So this is my email ID. This is rcelestin@atmata.ae, and also we have our global support ID, which is called support@atmata.ae. So you can send your queries, your emails to these IDs, and I will be happy to assist you in this. Our team will be happy to assist you in this. Okay, so thanks for attending this webinar, and we hope so we'll have future webinars with different topics. Please let us know what topic you need, specific topics. We can arrange for these webinars in future. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.